Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline Zakarian. I work for the Office of Civics and Community Services here at the Los Angeles Public Library. Welcome to today's program with SCORE Small Business Mentors called Starting a Business, What You Need to Know. Today, Dick Mader and Bob O'Brien from SCORE will be discussing the legal requirements for a startup business and also as well the actions that are simply smart to do. Please send us your questions throughout the program and we have a short Q&A after the presentation. Thank you and take it away, Bob.
Well, good morning, everybody. Let's start with the slides. So if you're looking for the Starting Your Business workshop, you've found it. Next slide. Your hosts today are myself, Bob O'Brien, and Dick Mader, and we'll introduce ourselves in just a minute. Next slide. This is Starting Your Business, What You Need to Know. And this workshop today is based on a questionnaire, actually a checklist on how to start your business, and we'll go through the checklist with you. Next slide. SCORE Greater Los Angeles is a resource for small businesses. SCORE nationally has 10,000 volunteers, and they're former businessmen or current businessmen and women. And these people want to give back, so we become mentors at SCORE. And we provide lots of workshops. We provide one-on-one mentoring, and we meet clients in libraries and Chamber of Commerce's during normal time. And now we're doing most of our meeting on Zoom. Next slide. Our mission today is to provide education and encouragement to entrepreneurs. We want to help you find a clear path through the confusion of starting a business. Next slide. A little introduction to myself. I started selling when I was in the 3rd grade, and I found out I really liked it, and it seemed like a good way to get things that I wanted. So I sold through high school and college, and then I went to work for Square D, a major electrical manufacturer, and I sold for them, and I enjoyed it. And then I got promoted to sales manager, and after a few years, I wanted a promotion, so I switched to GTE and became a regional manager here in the West. And after a couple of years with GTE, I hired some manufacturers rep firms, and they're basically small independent businesses that represent different lines from all over the world. And I really liked that business model, so I started my own rep firm, and I ran it for 25 years. And then I made the best sale of my life. I sold my company to my employees. Next slide.
Good morning, I'm Dick Mader. And like Bob, I started out pretty early selling things. But what I started selling was newspapers. I actually started out selling newspapers on a corner. And I really liked it, like Bob did. I liked the fact that by the end of the day, I had money in my pocket. And so I took that idea and kept growing through different newspapers, and then came to Los Angeles. And we actually have a company here that distributes newspapers, magazines, books, and DVDs on a wholesale level throughout the city, actually throughout Southern California. And my son is now operating the business, and gives me a chance to find out what else is going on, but I still advise him and give him a chance, or give him help whenever I get a chance. Just keep in mind that anything we talk about this morning, we're not lawyers or accountants. We're business people, and we have a lot of resources. So we can't give the advice, but we will tell you what the best practices are and the way to do things. So next slide.
The first thing on our checklist is to find a good business idea. That's the basis of your business, so it's important to find a really good idea. And it can be a tool that you invent to solve a problem. It could be a food. It could be better tasting, quicker to serve, or healthier. There's always food trends, and you can find a new food that goes along with the current trend. You can also start a business on a service that's performed better, quicker, or less expensively. And in today's day and age, you can come up with a new app. You want to join in, Dick, and tell me what I missed?
Next slide.
So to get started, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dick.
After you get your idea, then it's really important to look at the marketplace and see who the competitors are and how your product or service will fit into the marketplace. And how will you be different from other providers of that same service or competing services? A good example would be if you're going to open up a coffee shop and you were putting it on the corner, and Starbucks, for the sake of argument, was a block away. How would you fashion your business so that the customers would come to your place rather than Starbucks? Would you compete on price so that you could get people that don't want to pay $3 for a cup of coffee? Or would you have better coffee, maybe a sustained source from sustained countries? Or perhaps you would find something to differentiate your business from others' businesses. And you really need, especially these days, you need to have an unfair advantage, meaning that something that other people can't copy, other people can't do it the same way, only you can do it. So you really have to position yourself so you're not competing directly with other providers. Even though you want to make it so that it's unique and people will pass by those other providers and come directly to you. Next slide.
So when you have your idea, what you really need to do is a feasibility study. You need to start out by test marketing your idea. If it's a food, try and take it to a farmer's market or try and sell it in other places. You need to see if anybody is willing to buy your product and how much they're willing to pay. And you can start with friends and relatives, but the real test is trying to do this with strangers. So again, it's really important to remember, why is your idea or service better than what is out there? Next slide.
One of the first things that any entrepreneur needs to do is to be able to prepare a business plan. And I know I can hear some groans right now from people that have heard about how hard business plans are and how tough they are to put together. But we've actually put together what we call the lean business plan. You're looking at it. It's one page, and there's, I believe, 12 questions on there. And what we recommend that you do is take that lean business page, and you can find this on the internet or our website, by the way, and you can print it out. And what I recommend that you do is you print it out and answer each of these questions with a pen, you write on the page, and then put it aside for a couple days. Bring it back out again and see if the answers to the questions are the same. And over a period of several days, if you do this, I think you got a better business plan than somebody that writes a business plan and they're 100 pages. This is very concise, it's easy, and it gets you thinking. Next slide. And part of that business plan also would be to do a SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis is getting you thinking not only about yourself, but also the external part. So you look at your strengths. What strengths do you bring to the idea? It might be your artistic ability. It might be your organizational ability. It might be your enthusiasm. But what are your weaknesses? Be real honest there and say, I really am a great artist, but I don't know how to balance a checkbook. I don't know how to pay a bill. I don't know how to get money from people. So that's a weakness. So you have to really be honest and identify those strengths and the weaknesses. Capitalize on the strengths, double down, because that's what's going to make you successful. And on the weaknesses, either hire people or get partners or hire that work out, like get a bookkeeper to take care of paying the bills. Or if you're not good at the organizational part, maybe get an assistant that's really good at the organizational part. And then the other part of the SWOT analysis is to go out and look at what are the opportunities in the marketplace. That those are external things. What's missing from the marketplace? What do you see is missing? And look at those. And also, what are the threats? Externally, what could threaten you? It could be the slowdown of the economy. It could be technology might be threatening certain industries. I mentioned we were in the newspaper magazine industry, and the big threat to our industry is the internet, because there's so much information out there. So we have to really specialize on high-end magazines that come from foreign countries, for instance, instead of the old things. But it's really important to identify these things. And this is on our website as well. You can take a look at it, fill it out, and it gives you a good insight into what you're going to be doing. And this is a great thing to take to your SCORE mentor. We encourage you to sign up as a client with a SCORE mentor. And this is a great thing to bring to a meeting with your mentor and say, I've identified those strengths and weaknesses. How can I compensate for them? That's what we do with SCORE mentors. Next slide.
When you're starting a business, it makes sense to assemble a bail team, a banker, a CPA, an attorney, and a mentor. We recommend that you find these people through referrals, and we recommend that you ask people that you know in business who they use. And we recommend in many cases that you get more than one opinion. With the bank, we recommend that you find a small business bank. There you have more chance of being remembered and recognized, and your business will mean something to the bank. We recommend you find an accountant that you can work with, if only to do your income taxes. As your business grows, your taxes get more complicated, and it makes sense to hire somebody to do them rather than spend all the time it takes to learn how to do them yourself. In business, you're going to need insurance, and you need to find a business insurance agent. Your homeowner guy probably is not the right guy, so find a business insurance agent, and then ask him for what he recommends, and ask more than one agent what they recommend, and then you'll get some comparisons and you'll get some ideas of which way to go. Sooner or later, you're probably going to need a lawyer, so we recommend you have one of them that you know you can contact. And we really recommend that you find a mentor. This can be a family member who's run a business. It can be somebody that's in a similar business to yours, or it can be a SCORE mentor. We'll show you how to look at SCORE mentors at the end of the program, and you can look at their backgrounds, and they're more than willing to help you. Next slide.
The next thing you need to come up with is naming your business. And each state is different as far as names are concerned. So if you're in California, you would need a DBA perhaps. And you just want to make sure that you end up with a name that you're not competing with somebody else on the name. And choose a simple name. It should be short and simple so you can pronounce it and people can spell it. And they'll remember it. If you try to be too clever and make a long name, maybe they'll remember it, maybe they won't. We also recommend that the name you pick should be also the name of your website. So you need to kind of do those at the same time, check and see if it's available from the state of California or your state to use that name. And can you get the name website or the website? So you may have to be creative to come up with something that is the same so that it's really easy for people to find you. And also pick a name that kind of sticks out and tells people what you do and what they can expect. And whenever you put this name together, don't limit yourself to things that you've seen before. Be creative. The name of your business is important, and spend a little time getting that right. Next slide.
You're going to need to decide what your business structure is. All businesses have some legal structure. This is the most common 5 types of structures that are available. So let me just briefly go through them, and I'll tell you some of the pros and cons. The simplest and most common type of structure is a sole proprietorship. If you see a little girl selling lemonade on your neighborhood street, she is basically a sole proprietor. It really doesn't take much to get into business. It's easy to do. It's inexpensive to create. The disadvantage, and the major disadvantage of a sole proprietorship, is that you don't have any limited liability. If something goes wrong with your business, they sue you, not the business. So you do have some liability exposure. This oftentimes can be handled very easily by buying a little bit of liability insurance. So the sole proprietor is the most common and the easiest way to get into business. A partnership is very similar to a sole proprietorship, except that it's more than one person. And in a partnership, we really recommend that you do a partnership agreement in the very beginning. Partnerships can be troublesome, and having been in a bad partnership myself, I really warn you to make sure that you do a partnership agreement at the beginning. Again, you're the owners of the business. If anything goes wrong, you'll be sued. So again, if you want to limit your liability, we recommend that you buy some liability insurance. The next most common type of business structure is the limited liability company. In the state of California, 50% of them are formed through LegalZoom.com. They're not terribly expensive to create, but there are costs involved. You do get some liability, limited liability protection as a limited liability company. But the disadvantage in California is that each year you have to pay an $800 state tax, whether you make a nickel or not in your business. So certainly don't create your limited liability company before you're actually ready to do business and before you actually need it. The next most common type of structure is the S corporation, and it's basically very similar to a limited liability corporation. And the reason for the S corporation is that, like a sole proprietorship, like a partnership, like a limited liability company, all of the, you can pay your taxes on these structures by just adding a form to your personal income tax. And then the final type of structure is a corporation. This is the most rigorous type of structure. It's basically a totally independent legal person, and it has to file its own taxes. It has all kinds of rules that it has to follow. It issues stock to the owners, and it requires more legal help to do. So those are the 5 types of structures that are available. There are some others, but they're not near as common. Next slide. If you are a partnership or if you are a sole proprietor and you choose any name beside your own legal name, you really need to do a DBA or a doing business as or a fictitious name statement. And in the county of Los Angeles, here is a link to the website. And if you click on that link, up will come a form. And on the form, you can insert the name that you've chosen. And then you can press search and it'll see if it's taken. If the name's not taken, you can fill out the online form right there. And I recommend you do it. It's easy. It's very computer friendly. So you can enter all the information on the form. And then because of COVID, what you need to do is print the form out and take the form someplace and get it notarized when you sign it. And then you send it into the county with the fee of about $30. And once the county issues the name, you need to advertise it in a local newspaper. Now, I recommend you don't go to the LA Times because they want about $300 to do the advertising. Go to the local newspaper near you. And most of them have a program to do this, and they'll do it for less than $50. So the whole cost of doing a DBA is really pretty inexpensive. You should be able to do it for less than $100. Next slide.
And Bob mentioned earlier, it's important to open a separate business bank account. And the reason we recommend doing this is to keep your personal expenses and income separate from your business expenses and income. So if you're getting money from a gift from your Aunt Sally, you put it in your personal business account or your personal bank account. If you're getting money from a customer, that would go into your bank account for your business. When you're paying bills, you need to make sure that you pay them out of the right account. And this makes doing taxes so much easier because you can just look at those bank statements and you know that all the money that went in was money from your business. All the money that went out was expenses for your business. I did my taxes a couple weeks ago, and I practiced this, and it made it so simple to give all the information to the accountant because I had kept it separate. And, you know, Bob mentioned earlier about having a separate bank account, but looking at a small business bank rather than a big bank. And clients sometimes ask me, how can I tell the difference between a big bank and a small bank? If you go into a big bank and you say, I'm starting a business and I would like to establish a business relationship with your bank. If the person looks at you and says, what? You're probably in the wrong bank. If the person says to you, oh, welcome, I need you to come over and meet Sally because she takes care of our business customers, you know you're in the right spot. Next slide.
One of the things when you go into business there are risks. So what you need to do is consider all of the risks that are out there and then figure out some ways to mitigate the risk. For instance, if you have expensive property in your business, machinery or anything like that, you're going to want to protect it. So we recommend you buy a little property insurance. I talked a little bit about the different corporate structures and how some are more risky than others, and that liability insurance is available. I really recommend that as you get into business, you buy some liability insurance. My company was a C corporation, and I still bought the liability insurance. As soon as you hire employees, you have to provide them with workman's compensation insurance. unless you hire a relative. That's one of the exceptions to the law. If you have a relative, you don't have to get workman's comp insurance for them. And it's pretty much a fixed price, so you can shop around, but it's hard to, it's pretty much fixed. And the workman's comp insurance is really based on the type of work you're doing. Office work is the least expensive, and heaven forbid if you're a roofer, their insurance is just out of sight. Auto insurance is really important for your business, and you should have it anyway, but make sure that your autos are covered for your business also. And finally, health insurance is not required for small business, but it's really a nice perk for employees, and it's a way to make you different from some other employers, and it helps you get a little better quality of employee. And also, you can pay for this insurance with pre-tax dollars, so that's kind of nice also. Next slide. Now we're talking about funding insurance, and we're talking about other things. So when you get ready to start in business, we recommend that you have 6 months expenses, and that's both for you and for the business. So probably the most asked questions we get as mentors is, where do I get money for my business? Well, here is where 90% of the money for new small businesses comes from. It comes from your savings. It comes from equity in any property that you might own. And a thing that we like to refer to at SCORE as FF&F, it's friends, family, and fools. And then we recommend that you can actually cut down the amount of funds that you need by being frugal. Look for free stuff. Look for used stuff. If you need an office space, see if you can co-locate with a friend that's got extra space to get started. Look for all of these kind of ways of cutting down your costs. And finally, there's credit card financing, and lots of people use that to start out. We don't recommend that at SCORE, and you need to pay off any money you borrow as quickly as you can, because you're paying really terrible insurance. When I mentioned being frugal, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Porto's Bakery, but it's a really terrific bakery. It was started by a Cuban lady about 25 or 30 years ago. She's grown it to 3 stores. When you go to one of the stores, you wait in the line. It's so crowded. And they've been real friendly to SCORE and told us about their business. And they've told us they have never, ever bought a new piece of cooking equipment. Here is probably one of the most successful bakeries in the city, but they're still bootstrapping and they're still keeping their costs down. Next slide.
That's good advice. Not spending money to start a business with a fancy surroundings, unless you're retail. If you're retail, then maybe you need to be a little bit fancy. But yeah, doing it on a budget and bootstrapping is a great idea. One of the things that you'll need to make sure you have, as I mentioned earlier about bookkeeping, this is a very simple way of keeping track of your money. And you can use a form like this, or you can use something like QuickBooks, or you can use spreadsheets. But it's important, if you look at the form, to look at the left side, and every day you write down the money that comes in from your customers. And on the right side, you write down the money that you spend on your business's expenses. And at the end of the month, you would total this up. And at the end of the year, you would have 12 of these forms like this that have all of your sales on it and all of your expenses. Now, the nice part about doing this, it's good for taxes, of course, but it's good at the end of the month to be able to look at it and say, This is the third month in a row that I've had less income than I've had expenses. That's a red flag for you that you need to make changes. Either you need to sell more stuff or you need to cut your expenses, because you do want to be profitable. You always want to have more income than you do expenses. And this is very simple. This is what QuickBooks does. You can make it on a spreadsheet, or you can just print out a form like this and keep track of it manually. Next slide.
Unfortunately, when you go into business, you're going to have to pay taxes. And here are the different taxes that you're going to have to pay as a business. Your business is going to have to pay income tax, and you go to irs.gov to learn about that. If you're a sole proprietor, it's just adding another form to your personal income tax, so it's not difficult. You also, in a business, need to pay California income tax. And again, it's similar to the federal tax. If you have employees, you need to pay payroll taxes. And there's the website that you go to for payroll taxes. You have to withhold Social Security from your employees, and then you have to match it and pay it. If you're in California and you're selling retail, you need to collect sales tax. And to do that, you need to have a resale number. And you can get this fairly easily, and it doesn't cost you anything to get the number. And then you collect the tax from your customers and then pay it either quarterly or annually. This is one tax that actually has some advantages to you. You're collecting the sales tax, so that really is not costing you anything. And when you have a resale number, anything you buy a raw material for your product, if you give your vendor your resale number, they don't have to charge you sales tax. So it's a way for you to save sales tax on your raw materials. And finally, if you're in the county of Los Angeles and you have a significant amount of property, there's a personal property tax that you have to pay. Next slide. This is the form that I've been talking about that you add to your personal income tax. It's a IRS Schedule C. It's a one-page form. So, and basically on this form, you put how much money you took in, what your expenses were, and the difference is then added to your personal income tax. It's really that simple. Next slide.
One of the things to think about is, where will you operate your business from? Frankly, most people start a business from their kitchen table, or maybe a desk in their spare room or in their garage. But long term, you need to be thinking about, am I going to need an office or a storefront? And the difference is, an office might be on the second floor of a building. You don't have any exposure, but you've got a place where you can meet your clients and perform your service. A storefront, you're going to need people walking by and be easy to find. So think about what that will look like. And especially when you start, think about sharing space with somebody else. I know somebody that started a coffee shop, and they found the rents were just really, really high, but they were able to share space with a bookstore. So they got part of a bookstore who they're sharing space with, and boy, what a great combination. Coffee shop and bookstore. People come in browsing, want to get a cup of coffee, so they were sharing space. They were very, very creative. It's also important to make sure that your business is allowed in the zoning. Some cities have zoning ordinances that don't allow certain businesses in certain locations. So check that out before you sign a lease. And I mentioned earlier about a retail space. That's where you don't want to take a secondary location around the corner on a lousy side street, if you're going to be retail and you're going to be depending on people walking by, noticing you, seeing you, that's where you don't want to compromise. You want to get the best place that you can afford. And keep in mind that when a landlord says the cost of that space is $2,000 a month, and I want you to sign a lease for 10 years, just keep in mind that that is the cost. That's what he's claiming is the cost. You can come back and say, I can't afford to spend $2,000 a month in the first year, but I could afford $1,500 a month the first year. In the second and third year, maybe $1,800, and by the end of the 5 years, we'll be at $2,000. So you give the landlord what they want, but just not as quickly. And you might say, I'm not willing to sign a lease for 10 years, but I'll sign a lease for 5 years with an option to renew for the other 5. So always negotiate to get the best thing you can. Keep in mind that the lease form that you are presented from the landlord probably favors the landlord. So you want to make sure you look at it, make sure that there's nothing in there that would cost too much. And you may want to show it to an attorney just to say, is there anything in here I need to be concerned about? And you can always go back to the landlord and say, I'm willing to sign this lease if you make these changes. Now, that advice is generally good. However, currently, landlords are in the driver's seat. So keep in mind that unless you're looking at a space that was vacated during the pandemic and it's been empty for 6 months, you can negotiate on that. But if you're looking at warehouse space or prime retail space, right now it's a landlord's market, meaning that they will dictate the terms. But generally, always negotiate the rent. And just be aware of what the lease says as far as a net or a gross. One is not good as the other. Both can be advantage to you. Just make sure you understand that exactly is the lease payment include the electricity and the plumbing or the water and other things. Just be aware of what it includes. Next slide.
One of the questions we get is, what kind of licenses do I need? And here are some websites that you can go to that lists a lot of the licenses. I really like the one calgold.ca.gov. If you go to that website, it'll ask you, first of all, where you're located. So you put in your location, and then it'll ask you what kind of business you're in, and it'll list like 100 different types of business. So you just pick the one that's closest to your business and click on that. And up will come this horribly long list of things that you might or might not need. So what you need to do then is just kind of scroll through the list, and you can quickly decide whether that whatever it is applicable to you or not. For instance, if you're just starting out, you don't need a building permit, and that happens to be on the list, so you don't need that. But the nice thing about this list is you come across something like the sales tax that I mentioned. You need a resale number, that's on the list. You click on that, and up will come all the information you need to apply for the resale number. And it's all right there. It's really very handy. Another thing that you need when you go into business is an EIN number. And an EIN number is simply a social security number for your business. And it's real easy to get, and it doesn't cost you anything. And it's on this list that CalGold provides. So you click on it, and again, all the information on how you get the EIN number is there. So the other lists on the slide are good, but as I said, I really like the calgold.ca.gov. Next slide. We mentioned the sales tax number. Here is the website that you go to get your resale number. Next slide.
I want to talk just a little bit about marketing. It's really important as you work through your business plan and get ready for your startup and doing all the things that you are getting ready to offer your product or service, is to have a marketing plan, to give some thought about how do you want, in a concise manner, to tell your customers about your product or service. So you want the right message, talking about the benefits, talking about why this is a good service for them. And you want to be identifying the right prospects, because not everybody will appreciate your service and be willing to pay for it. So you want to make sure you identify who those customers are and where they live and what media they use and what their preferences are, so you know how to talk to them. And you want to be doing it at the right time. You want to make sure your marketing message is geared to the right time of the year. You don't want to be talking about Christmas trees in June. You want to be talking about Christmas trees in November and December, perhaps. But you want to make sure that your message is consistent to your customers and in your marketing. So when your customer is ready to buy, they will remember your message that was talking directly to them about the benefits of your product or service. Next slide. Something you need to think about is a list of suppliers and people that will provide services to your business. And really, that's something you could probably go over with your SCORE mentor. What kind of things will I need? I'll just throw out some ideas. You may or may not need them. They're all sometimes different. But you may need a web designer. So you need to look for maybe 2 or 3 web designers, talk to them, see what they charge, see what kind of experience they have. You want to talk to that business insurance agent that Bob talked about, and you want to talk to a couple of them so you get their perspectives. If you're buying raw materials for your product or service, you probably talk to 2 or 3 big companies or even neighborhood companies that might be able to supply those raw materials. Think about your phone system. Most businesses today start with just a cell phone, but you want to make sure it's got all the features that you need, like answering messages and also in case you can't answer the phone, that it takes care of the message for you. You want to look at office supplies, and in some businesses that's a bigger part of the business than others. So think about where your office supplies are going to come from. Think about how you'll get paid. There's PayPal and there's other systems. There's so many of them now that are electronic and very inexpensive, but you need to pick one that fits your kind of business and that has a plan that you can afford. You don't want to pay for things that you'll never need. And you might need a computer, you might need a shredder, you might need to look at how you're going to ship. Are you going to use UPS? Are you going to use United States Postal Service or FedEx? So these are all things that you think about in advance. And rather than grabbing a phone system at the last minute when you're desperate, it's good to think about it in advance and making sure you get the right one. And you'll save money, you'll save time, and you'll save some aggravation. Next slide. It's also a good time to think about the workflow and what standards and procedures. And what that means is when you get an order from a customer, how will it go through your business? Documenting the color that they want, documenting the price they're going to pay, documenting the delivery time. So a workflow chart is really important so that it's easy to implement once you start up, having a good workflow. And if you have got employees or you're intending to have employees, have your standards and your the procedures documented in the training manual. So when a new employee comes on, it's very clear what your standards are and what you expect and how you expect the customer to be treated. Those are things that, frankly, when I go into a business and I get lousy service, I kind of look around and say they aren't training their people very well, and I'm not sure I'm coming back. You want to make sure that if you have a contract with your customers, that you make sure that it's fair, but it's also make sure that things are spelled out in such a way that it reduces any disputes later. And if you're a restaurant, you want to make sure you've got a menu and pricing and then an employee manual, especially if you're going to have multiple employees. You want to make sure that you're complying with all state regulations, federal regulations, and the employee manual is something that you don't want to necessarily write yourself. You can usually go online or work with an HR company to use a stock one and then go through it and just make sure it fits your particular business. Next slide.
As an old salesman, I like to say nothing happens till somebody sells something. And you can actually start selling your products before you've got everything else lined up. Selling your product or service really is the key to making your business work. And as a salesman, I'd recommend that you look for what we used to call the low-hanging fruit. Look at your product and then look at the customers, the potential customers out there, and find the ones most likely to buy your product and the ones out there most easy for you to reach. And start there, begin selling, get going. And as you sell, you'll develop a sales pitch that works. You'll develop ways to reach these customers and you'll get your business going. So make that first sale and then make a whole bunch after that. Next slide. This is the SCORE website. It's losangeles.score.org. And we recommend you take a look at the website. You can see it's kind of hard to read, but you can click on the block that says free mentoring, and it'll give you biographies of all of our local mentors that are willing to talk to you about your business. The center slide there is workshops that we offer. We offer quite a number of both free and workshops that we charge for. And our prices are really exorbitant. Our most expensive workshop is $30. And we cover all kinds of different things. So it's worthwhile to take a look there. And the third block tells about different templates and information that we have and some blogs. We've got a really great template for doing financial forecasting. It's really helpful and well used. So there's all kinds of great information there. Next slide. So we want to wish you good luck in your business, and we want to help you, and we'd like to try and answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you both. So we have a comment that came in from Michelle. She wants to recommend speaking to a SCORE mentor because her mentor gave her advice that she couldn't find online. It's very friendly and motivating. Good luck, everyone. Thank you, Michelle. We love to hear that. I have some questions that I'd like to ask. I have one question. I'm starting a landscape business, and my brother-in-law says that the first thing I need to do is start an LLC. That costs $1,000 a year in state and legal fees. Is there another way?
Well, let me try and answer that question. And first of all, I got to say, I am not a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. So we talked about business structures. You could think about starting as a sole proprietor. And the cost of starting that is minimal. The disadvantage of a sole proprietor versus an LLC is that you don't have any liability protection, but you can get an insurance policy that'll give you liability protection. So, and it kind of depends on the business you're going into. I talked to a lawyer recently, and he said he kind of looks at it as whether he would lie awake at night or not. And he said if you start a business and you're basically selling paper products and things that are relatively common and safe, he said he would consider starting as a sole proprietor because the liability that can happen there is not very difficult. He says, however, if you're starting a wall climbing business, he said, you better be an LLC and get some insurance also.
Okay, thank you very much. We have some more audience questions that came in. How is someone paired with the mentor, a SCORE mentor?
I'll take that one. People go to the website. We have a website, losangeles.score.org, and you can look at the mentors, and you can see all the experience and the education and the skills that they have. And you can pick one or more. You can actually have more than one mentor, and many people do. They have maybe one mentor that really helps on the artistic and the creative side of their business. And then maybe they have another mentor for the plumbing of the business, making sure that things work right. So you can either choose them yourself by going through the list of mentors, or you can just request a mentor and ask a question or tell them what you're thinking about doing. And then they will, we have a team that looks at them and matches you up with that mentor that's best for you. So, and sometimes it works the first time and sometimes it doesn't. And that's why I think Bob mentioned it and I'll mention it again. You're in charge here. You need a mentor that you can talk with, and you need a mentor that has the skills and the experience that you need. And frankly, after the pandemic, when you can meet in person, you probably want somebody close by, especially if they can come into your business, or you can meet them, at a local coffee shop or at the Chamber of Commerce or the library. You want somebody close by, but it really depends on if the skills you're looking for are so esoteric. You may get a mentor that's in Washington, D.C. or up in Seattle. So take a look at the website, see what skills you're looking for, and then start making contact.
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah, for a great question. So we have another question from Karina. How did you overcome struggles and how did you handle it emotionally and action-wise for the business?
Let me address that.
I'll take a shot at that first, and then you can join in. When I started my business, the one thing that I did that helped me was I had a fallback plan. I decided that I could exist in business and not make a nickel for a year, and I wouldn't be any worse. I'd be a little worse off, but not that much worse off. And if it didn't work, I could handle it if I knew I could get a job right away. So I actually went out when I started my business and talked to a few friends and said, what happens if I don't make it? And I had job offers in my back pocket in case my business didn't work. And that kind of took all the pressure off and it eased on the finance. So I really recommend a fallback plan.
I'm going to add, it's kind of interesting. This is the first question that we both jumped at to answer. The previous questions was pretty cut and dry, but this one, and I think we want to talk about how we overcome struggles because that is a big part of our business. And I think that for me, it's so important to have passion for your product or service. And when I mean passion, not just, I kind of like my art gallery. You better love your art gallery. And so you have to have that emotional connection with the product or service. Otherwise, when tough times comes along, you may give up. But if you've got the passion for the product or service, you're less likely to give up. And I think that's also a way to work with that is to get a mentor because, I've got clients that I've worked with over 4 or 5 years, and we still meet, occasionally. It's like once a month, and that emotional support is so good. Not that I have all the answers, and it's one of the things that we talk about is we don't have all the answers. But if I do my job right as a mentor, I'm asking the right questions.
And another thing in business is if you're motivated, things happen. And when I started out and had no sales at all and knew I needed sales, I was the best salesman I've ever been in my life. I'm not near as good as I was then because I really needed to make things happen. And I found as business went along, problems would occur that I thought, first of all, they never could have happened. And second, they scared the living daylights out of me. But if you really get involved, you find solutions. And oftentimes, some of the worst things that happen to you turn out to be the best things because you change the way that you do business, or you find a new product, or that customer was a pain in the rear end anyway, and you were wasting too much time. So you just have to have the right attitude, and that really helps a lot. And believe in yourself.
Thank you. Gabriel Botsford has, Bob is actually his mentor, and he was directed to Los Angeles Score website from the SBA website because Score is also part of the Small Business Association. So yeah, thank you, Gabriel. And
I guess I probably owe him a cup of coffee, right?
Yeah. I think, let me see, I think there might be time for one more question. If you're starting a consulting business from home, do you need a city business license?
Go to the calgold.gov website, and you can put in your actual location, and it'll tell you whether you need a business license or not. calgold.ca.gov, and just put your city in and what you're doing.
Okay, CalGold. Okay. Okay, actually, there's 2 minutes left. Okay, fine. This is going to be the last question. There are online companies that write business plans for money, like $2,500, for instance. Do you have like a recommendation of what would be like one of the best ones, or? Is there a best
You're
one?
on mute.
Oh, I think.
I'll answer that
Okay,
question.
thank you, Bob.
I really recommend you don't do that. I recommend you buy your own. You create your own business plan. And first of all, think about why you need the business plan. If you're just starting out, the lean plan that we showed you works pretty good, and you can create one in a reasonable amount of time. And then as your business grows and you begin to get to a point where you actually are able to borrow money, then you need a formal business plan. But there are all kinds of templates out there. We got an excellent one on the Score website, so you can you can create your own plan. Because once you have this business plan, you're going to carry it in to talk to a potential investor. And he's going to start thumbing through that thing and say, well, where'd you get these numbers? And where did these come from? And if you haven't written the plan yourself, you're not going to look good, and they aren't going to loan you the money. So I really recommend you don't pay to have it done. I recommend you do it yourself. And you can get somebody to help you, but don't pay somebody else to create it for you.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. Bob, and that's on. We're on time now, so thank you guys both. We lost it, but that's okay. Thank you both for a great presentation. I wanted to say, please join us again next month, Wednesday, April 20th. We have another great program with SCORE. It's going to be in social media essentials for business. And yeah, there's more information on this program and all of our library programs at lapl.org/what's/calendar. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So long.